Manisha. Thank you so much for having me part of the podcast. I still remember how the smile Kea has brought to all of us during the IAs, and little did I know we would connect this way. And yeah, I think every space of inclusion is just that we don't know how we're going to connect further and how it's going to impact positively to each other. So to give a small introduction about myself, as you know, I'm born with this rare disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, and the character of this condition is still teenage. The bones are extremely brittle, and after that, the breakages are very rare for my bones, and there's like a lot of deformities, and the divine design of mine is because of those deformities. I have completed my homeschooling until 12th, and then I took my certification and diploma from Open University. And yeah, right now I work for this organization called Enable India for the candidate success team, where again I deal with a lot of persons with the disability, and I think I've been evolving in this sector from more than 12 years now.
Tanya, this is like the shortest version of an amazing story that I've heard. But I know that as much as you're putting it or encapsulating it so well, the journey would not have been easy for you, right? And I know that because I'm parenting a child with another form of another severe rare disease condition. Uh, I want you to tell us a little about your challenges you had when you were growing up. How easy or difficult did your parents find it to bring up a child?
So my growing up, like as you said rightly, it was not an easy journey at all. Especially in India, growing up with different culture, and it's a stigma. Basically, it's a stigma that has been holding among many of us and the relatives, and in the society in itself. And especially a person with rare disease or any form of disability in the family, the financial freedom requires something very very huge. So from as a childhood, I think for any human system, or for any human being, I think childhood is the most beautiful phase in life, and my childhood has always been mostly in the hospitals or in the room. Like during my time, the schools were not inclusive, and I could not do a mainstream schooling. I was homeschooled, and during that time homeschooling was not something very popular, or maybe it is even accepted. So for me, oh, Danya, oh, she's learning from home. That's how it was just seen. It was not even being accepted, or can that be a learning system in itself was not there. But luckily, I had a teacher who came home and voluntarily taught me for 10 years. That is till my 10th grade. So for me, that was a big learning. Like today, when I look back, my whole communication, or maybe the way how I see my life is because of that one teacher. It's very true that I could not play in the grounds with the children in the school, mainstream schooling, but my learnings with my teacher has been beyond the academic book. So in that sense, that is the positive side of it, where I feel so grateful, I would say. And with the medical condition, yes, it was not an easy way at all. Especially, I come from a very conservative family where the firstly it's a woman or it's a girl, and then it's a disabled, and so there's like a lot of limitations that has been put out, and my parents are never aware about how what exactly should be done to a child with difference. All they knew was to give love, support, medical need, just like how I'm sure like how you have been for Kaya, the similar thoughts. But the beyond that, they just don't know how to nurture a child. It is due to lack of awareness, I would say. Like then your self-help books will be enough, and maybe the shelter, the food, that was only thought between my parents and myself, that has been. And my father has been just like any person, he has been a great support in terms of helping me with the medical care, where we I used to like consulted around 50 plus doctors during my childhood days. Although we know it's an incurable condition, but just going from nook and fort to one hospital to another was one of the ways that they found solace. And yes, at some point in time, we came to an understanding that at the age of 10, I told my parents, like, I'm done visiting hospitals, and I have very much accepted my condition, and I feel okay with this, and this is me. And I kind of stopped having my painkillers during when my bone get fractured, because I feel the painkillers are never going to heal me. It is the 4 weeks of healing stage, and painkillers are never going to make the healing quicker or any that sense. So I just kind of stopped that. There is a lot that I started to feel my body, my mind, and what I am from the age of 10 and 12. And I think at the age of 16, the fractures reduced drastically when the puberty started, and that is a condition, that is a character of the condition actually.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
After that, I think when I kind of now, and now I'm in my 30s, and when I look at it, I would say that what has I'm mostly a self-taught woman. Like I said, my parents had given me all the freedom to be who I am, but there is no one to navigate me on how I need to go up with my journey. So I used to like grow up listening to stories of people backing, like how Danya is going to live her life after her parents, or
Parents.
will she even work, or will she even how does she kind of handle her cycles, and a lot of questions have been as to hear in my back end. And being on those days until my 20s, I was always on my bed, and these are the stories that I overheard from people. So this has actually put me into a question, like how I can work on myself. And now when I look at it, my journey has been so liberating, I would say, because at the age of 20, where I had no options or anything to do, these were the words that I heard, and no one came as a favor or as a support. Rather, it was more of me who was trying to find ways, and it was a digital which has helped me to connect with people, network, and see
Absolutely.
how. So I think from the age of 19 or 20, I started volunteering through online in different ways, to different platforms, and I kind of started getting connected with some like-minded groups and people. So I think it all just started up from there.
Hmm.
Life was not the way how I wanted it, but what has helped me is to find my purpose in my journey, and
I
also
can.
have some incredible people in my life, where in both the ways, some who taught me who I can be, and some who taught me to who I can look out to. So it has been a very beautiful, liberating journey so
It's
far.
so nice to hear how you are just narrating your own story, and there's so much of hope at the end of that whole tone that you have, that no matter how many doors close on you, no matter how negative the voices around you are, one can still keep going, right? And wait for that light to still appear at the end of the tunnel, which it did for you. I think with the advent of technology, you were able to connect with like minds. Today you are able to actually globally connect with people, being in one location, and that is where I think the solutions automatically come to you, because it's not just one set of people who you are born with who ultimately defines one's life. But Dhanya, when you heard, and this is a very peculiar question, you might say, but I'm only trying to probe you here because it's important that everybody who thinks that things are difficult in their life and there's absolutely no hope, they need to hear this. When you hear everybody around you talk about the impossibilities, right? What were the words that you heard within your own mind? And what kept you going in those years when you really didn't have answers to what it is going to be for you for the rest of your life?
So I think I was not looking for any answers. So that has kept me on my track. And now when I see, I feel I found all the answers to the questions that has been put on to me, right? Like I said, when the idea is, like, I'm sure you will echo with this with me. Like when you're in isolated mode because you are different from the journey has not been the so-called normal way, there are people who kind of like ask questions, but there'll be very few who comes and give you a solution there. and that is
Absolutely.
where we need to find our way. So that's where I said, no, like when I had access to any mobility or anything of this, I've been having hearing all these kind of questions, right? So then
Hmm.
what is with me during that point in time was a Barbie doll and some fairy tale books, nothing beyond that. So coming from there and exploring the like when my brother used to go to college, I used to take his computer, and during then it was this big white hole monitor
Mhm.
and keyboard, and this was a system that my father had bought for him for his college days. So when he goes to college, I used to sneak peek to the system, and I used to keep the mouse on each application and read what it is, and there was no one to literally teach. So I kind of click on Internet Explorer toolbar, log into certain sites, see what is happening, how to connect. So a lot of things were like it was a purely self-taught, but what has kept me guided was I was on the right kind of group of people. Like maybe I was part of volunteering either for a social cause, or maybe I was volunteering for a I love music, so I've been volunteering with some Malayalam musical people. So
Hmm.
it is through all these people that where I graduated, where I learned so many things. So I would say that it is this life that has been the school for me, and it is from all those I picked up from that. So there is
Correct.
nothing that I was really looking out for, but whatever I done through those years, I kept me for who I need to be. So that's where I said,
Absolutely.
as someone who likes to be, maybe my growing up has been in the room or something like that. I always like to be
Hmm.
behind the screen, and but a part of me now have been, where I need to go to talk, share stories, and all of that. So it took some time for myself to accept this transition. Even
Yeah.
now, I'm trying to move there, and but the major reason why being ready to be vulnerable in the society, despite of me having a back thought that then yeah, you like to be in the backstage, not in the front, but why I'm kind of like moving on to the transition is like the need of an hour of the awareness that is required among the
Absolutely.
society. Like you early said, there is still a lot of gap system support that has been missing among the community in itself. So maybe
Absolutely.
when many of us come together, I think the change has been happening, and I think it's progressing, but there's a lot more that
Lot more
needs
to
to
be
happen.
done. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
a lot more momentum that needs to be built, because I think also the fact that the awareness is not out there, that people are not connected, right? At the end of it, I think the first step that happens with awareness is that people start connecting to each other, and that is where a collaborative force develops. My next question to you is, with the I think the increase in awareness, with your with the increase of your connections with people around you, did you also realize that you had more potential than what was made out to be, right? And somewhere focusing on abilities that you could develop, right, even in spite of the severe disabilities that you were living with, that could help you to find a sustainable way of existence. Did that realization dawn upon you when you started getting closer to newer people in your life, and realizing that yes, I have to upskill myself? Tell us a little about that part of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being in the disability professionals, I realized like it's not just a realization. I think it is the much required space for sustainability or for financial independent. Upskilling is very, very, very important, and it's a hard space as well. Like for a person like me who has never been to the mainstream, so it's a more of a self thought. I need to put another 2 inch harder steps for me to upskilled than a normal person who has been in the mainstream to keep up with the workplace or even in the professional area. So I think upskilling is very very essential for everyone, and especially for persons with disability it has very much required. Like there are times where even on my personal or professional journey where I kind of lack certain things, and I feel like if this was access to me much before, maybe my hurdle would have been a little more graceful, or maybe I would have been a little more mindful or focused. So I think there is a learning that has been happening in me every single minute, especially in the workplace. It is it is like being there for persons with disability, I would say. And it is just because we are having the lack of access to quality education. Especially
Absolutely.
in my case, I really feel like if I had the access to real mainstream education, I think, although I feel totally grateful for being homeschooled and for the learnings in my life from my
Hmm.
teacher and from the mainstream books that I kind of educated and came up from, there is
Hmm.
still a space of me where I feel like, yes, there is a lot for me to work on and to upskill
Right.
myself. This is the only thing that would help us to be in a greater success stories in the professional
Absolutely.
area.
Absolutely. And I think, what has happened in the recent years is with the advent of, again, online education and accredited, courses being available. I think at least that gap that was there in the system. I know that when we talk about inclusive education, it applies to people with all kinds of disabilities, right? But just focusing on people with, physical disabilities, just the locomotor disabilities, at least I feel, the advent of online education has somehow, made education accessible, at least at the fingertips, for people who are, enclosed within their homes, who are not able to navigate peacefully in the world around them, thanks to the lack of physical access that is available in the brick and mortar world of education. Today, if you ask me whether it is primary education, high school education, or even higher level of education, it is available at least at the tip of your fingers via the online medium, which is I think been a blessing in disguise. I wish it was there earlier, but it is never too late. We can't just stop thanking people who have made this kind of medium available. So moving on from there, Dhanya, where are you right now in your life? How is your professional journey, if I have to ask you?
So my professional journey is quite interesting, I would say. I think I'm doing what I like to do. That is what keeps me, motivated, I would say. But yes, when you ask me, there is like, since I work with this organization where, they kind of support for the livelihood opportunities of persons with disability and the economic development of the PW and all of that. So yes, when in that large, I would say, yes, there is still a long, long way for. So we just had this discussion like how a journey of a person with severe disability be in the professional space at the age of 40s, early 40s. Like, it's not a journey of comparison, but it's a journey of a life, right? Like, I see when so I would just say that my life, where I really started off my self advocacy when most of the people at the age of 28, when they are kind of settled, I started to self advocate for myself. So there is a slow process in terms of age and how we have grown up and the kind of environment and how confident you are within and all of that. So yes, so in that sense, yes, it's a slow journey, but it's progressive. That's what I would say. Like, in terms of even for a person with severe disability, like the professional area, I think these are some things I like to just say upon to the younger generations or of PWDs or anyone working in the sector, of how we can make persons with severe disability be with the same age of another in terms of professional life. Like, when a person without disability or with a mild disability makes their hit in the age of 28 in a very settled way or on their early 30s, we are those buckets of people who are trying to be there to make a baseline on the professional space. So these are some of the gaps that needs to be filled in, I would say. But yes, that's the gap of inclusion or the economic development that I aspire for to be filled in. But otherwise, yeah, I'm loving what I do. And in a day, I work for this team called Candidates Access Team currently, where I kind of interact with multiple persons with disability in a day, and I just make some fun out of it.
That's a nice way to put it, Dhanya. But this is a very sensitive topic, and I would really like to understand the space better, because I'm only assuming that my daughter would be eventually getting into it, right? Which is the workplace environment in our country. Now, over the years, if you ask me, and I'm in my late 40s, I've seen the workplace culture evolve, right, from where it was very very public sector oriented to today you have a lot of private companies, and you have a variety of roles. You have opportunity to work remote or hybrid, and those kind of things are available today thanks to the advent of technology again. But do you feel that somewhere those who are aspiring, and I'm again looking at people with disabilities as a large spectrum, it is not just one bucket here. We have several types of disabilities, and hence those many types of abilities, right? So when you are talking about hiring people with, say, physical disabilities, could be mild to major, do you feel, because of the lack of accessibility in our country, you know how the public transport system is, you know how our public infrastructure is, do you feel the workplace structure should or the culture should incorporate remote working for people with disabilities, and provide employment for them on that basis? Because cognitively, you will agree with me that there is absolutely nothing lacking, right? Whether it is you as an individual, or whether it is Kia as an individual, and I'm talking with respect to my own daughter, I've seen that academically also there is a lot of proficiency which is comparable to any other regular school going child or a workplace going individual, when it comes to non cognitively affected individuals who are only suffering with physical disabilities. What is your take on this, Dhanya?
So rightly, like you said, in terms of hiring persons with disability, there is a huge change that has been there, and it is progressing, no doubt. But as a person who's living in the space, also as an observer, I think like the next step should be like, one thing is, like you said, the infrastructure of accessibility is way long. It's a long way to go. Not every company can provide an accessible cab, or no, because it's very expensive, and not every location has accessible cabs. So which means, does that mean the person in that city or area or in that district should not be working? No, right? So the idea is bringing in two ways. I see things in this way, that is, definitely, hiring policies has to be reworked in a way where persons with disability can work remotely, because this will increase the quality and quantity of persons with a disability in the workplace. So it's very, I think we don't have to speak much about it, because it's already experienced over the years. Like over the past 7 years or 8 years back, most of the persons with disabilities are never seen in the workplace. But down the 7 to 8 years, at least a percent of it are in the mainstream workplace, right? So there is a progression there. But as a next level, what I see is it's important to bring in some set of flexibilities in the policies. That is, in a way, it's all about making one feel they're part of it, right? So the idea is, even if it is on a hybrid mode, or even it is in a remote mode of working, it is about making me feel I'm part of the work culture, and I'm part of the professional life. So once this set of accessibility is done, I think majorly that is where we say he or she is a professional with disability. Like I could see in some of my own experience in the past, like because I'm working from home, I miss out many of the things because I'm not able to go to the office. And ideally, why that has happened is because lack of accessibility, that I can't commute to my office every day, and my safety, a lot of things are involved in this, right? So
Right.
but that doesn't mean I need to be kept aside of the fun or maybe the learning or anything. So whatever happens in the office zone or on site, if that can be accessibly accessed by a person who's working in the remote space, I think that same value or the contribution can be given. So I sometimes feel like because I'm working from home, I'm not able to understand this, or maybe
Hmm.
because I'm working from home, I'm not able to contribute like others. So
Hmm.
eventually, my quality of work might might mark out.
Yes, it matters to feel engaged in a work culture, because otherwise the productivity can vary, right, of a person who's less interactive in the space that they're working in.
These are like some of the things that I have seen, and it is also marks for the educational sector, I would say, not just the
Hmm.
workplace, right? Like even if the schools are accessible, the kind of quality education that a person with disability gains even in the village area are something very it makes a huge difference. Like I come from Kerala, and I know like some of the persons with disability in Kerala, in some of the villages area, the IQ level and all of them like way beyond what we can think. But just because they don't have a wheelchair, or maybe they can't go to the school because the parents are daily wage worker, they're not able to
Hmm.
access. They're very confined to the rooms even now. So these are like
Absolutely.
some of the things that we have some mobile learning methods or many of things. I think that's where they be part of the community.
Absolutely. It's a purely, if you ask me from my perspective, it's like a chicken and egg situation, right? Today, what has happened is that thanks to technology, we have access to a lot of aspects of our lives. But should we wait to to get that public infrastructure access, where environments become physically more accessible, or should we start hopping onto the online medium and start working, start getting educated, start accessing whatever aspects of our lives that we need, right? I think that is where we have come to today. And honestly, because as a country, as a nation, we have always lagged behind in physical infrastructure development. I think that will take some time, Dhanya, honestly speaking. We've had these large scale debates that why are the schools not inclusive? Is it the mindset? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the non availability of special educators? And they're trying to get that whole sort of basics in place. Workplace culture also, we have the same discussions. What does how do we define disability? What kind of people with disability do we really hire? Is it just going to be gender neutral, or are we talking about inclusion being we're being limited to hiring of more women in the community? So we are at different stages of the discussion. But I keep telling people who are differently enabled that please, I think, seek education, because without education, you can never normalize your own lives. So whatever level of education can help you get climb the higher rungs of your life, please get access to it. If it is online medium, get access through online mediums. And even jobs, whether it is whether you can find an accessible office or no, but if you do find an employer who is inclusive in their culture, where they're giving remote opportunities for jobs, etc., please start latching on to that, because nobody really becomes established in their professional career in a single shot, right? Even we have had to climb and go through several iterations in our jobs, several job changes to reach where we have in our lives. And it better opportunities will only come when you have better experiences under your belt. I think somewhere getting those right experiences, getting the right education matters at the end of it. And I think become self advocates. This is what I keep telling people, that please become self advocates, because if you do not voice your concerns, who else will, right, at the end of it? So I think there, Dhanya, you're scoring 100 on 100, because you're doing all these things, and this is what makes you I think one of the heroes that I wanted to spotlight on the series, because how many people with disabilities are actually doing what you're doing, right? You can actually count the number of people that are surfacing to the top, with this kind of acknowledgement. But please keep at it. And while you're at it, Dhanya, I really want you to answer this question for me. What does inclusion mean to you, having seen the space, having worked in the space? I know it's a big word, and a scary word, but to you, what does inclusion mean, and how effective do you think that definition
The
is?
moment you feel like you be known for what you are, and that's where inclusion is, and not by any set of labels. Like I can give you this small example, like because I'm a short and structure person, mostly I get bullied around by in that labels. Or maybe I'm just putting my own stories. I don't want to pull up any other ones, like I would say the lack of education. I mean, so these are like some of the labels. So overcoming all that. So for me, inclusion is me just being there, and people just see me the way I am. And I think this is what everyone is at some point in time, whether you are a person with disability or not, or what kind of disability, or any profession, or any care community as well. Like the whole, it's about the equity that we all look out for. So for me, inclusion means see the person the way he or she is. So that's where inclusion means, like you said, it's a big thing, and I can't answer it in one, because in each and every area of life, inclusion means different. And on a large note, or maybe on a simpler note, inclusion is about just seeing the person the way they are. And the moment
Absolutely.
I feel embraced the way I am, that's where I feel I'm included.
Absolutely. I think the one word that people, which is a favorite word to define this concept, is self-acceptance and overall acceptance by people around you, right? And I think acceptance not because of your shortcomings, but acceptance because of what you are capable of at the end of the day. It's an acceptance at both the levels. I think most of the reasons why people feel sort of left out or outcasted, for various reasons in the society, is that they do not get, or they do not fit a norm that has been put in place by the society. And it's a blind sight. I think it's a complete blind sight where we have created these definitions. Because if you ask me honestly, Dhanya, all of us are able in some ways and not in some, right? So how then do you define the word disability? If you can't define the word disability, then how can you not include a person? So that is how I usually go about answering this question, that when there are no set definitions, how can you say that, okay, this is one person who doesn't fit this definition, and this person needs to be left out? But I think in a way we are talking more, since I've been in the social media space and in the corporate space for so many years. I've noticed that a lot of people have started vocalizing about this, both inside workplaces, inside educational institutions, and in general in the social media space, which is a good change, because the more people are raising good questions around this topic, I think the more people are deliberating. At least they are thinking, they are discussing, and they are trying to redefine these notions. And it's a good time, I think, for people who are self advocates to actually lay down the correct definition, which is why I asked you this, right? It is very
Yeah.
important that each of the front runners come out and say that I need to feel accepted, I need to feel included, because to me, this is my ability. And I don't know what disability means. If just not being able to walk on your 2 feet is disability, then I think that whole definition is very, very incomplete, right, at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Because in that
yeah.
in that life cycle of a human being, Dhanya, tell me one person who is going to remain perfectly able-bodied from the birth to their old age. There is nobody, right? It's just that some people have some form of disability for a longer time, and some people have it for a shorter time. I think that's the only difference there is. Now, coming to this next question, Dhanya, I know you've been a self-advocate, in your own space for many years now. Which part of inclusion are you working on? Where is your focus? Would you like to tell us a little about that?
I think it has been evolving over the years, I would say, but tangibly, I am raising awareness for genetic diseases, and that's the whole goal, major goal of it. Like, I really wish and hope that, we have a rare disease free India at some point in time. So, as you rightly, maybe you are one of the person who would really connect with me on this.
Hmm.
Like when a person, maybe when all of us most of us go through a genetic test. I think the way how the generation comes up can be equipped in a very better way, rather than holding on with the other side story part of it, right? So
Absolutely.
the moment when each of us be responsible in taking genetic tests, I know that technology have come a long way, and maybe still some conditions cannot be diagnosed, but the moment when we each of us be responsible in taking genetic tests before we do family planning, or any of these kind of things, I think a lot of it. And even now, yeah, things have changed over the years. Like even newborn tests have come in some of the states, but again it's very expensive. So even the kind of treatment for the newborn child, it is not an easy thing to give, or maybe known. There are still a lot of people who struggle to know what to do for the child. So there is a long way. So my major goal is definitely to raise awareness about genetic diseases. So I really feel in my talks or any of the session, at least if one person take a pledge within themselves that they do the genetic test, whatever is in our control, I think that's one of the best gifts we can give to our own life and to the future generations. Apart
Absolutely.
from that, I think a lot of things have been evolving. Maybe one-on-one supporting system within the community have been going through. Maybe some of them go through a lack of educational mentorship, or maybe some small assistive aids, or even raising awareness about. So I've been part, or maybe adolescents, the parent coaching. So these are like some of the small things that have been going around over the few years. And currently, I'm working on a project called Humans on Wheels. I'm really looking forward to have more volunteers gather on this project.
Nice. You want to tell us a little more about this project? Sounds very interesting, like a Humans of Bombay or Humans of New York kind of a league. Why don't you tell us a little more about it? Or is it a deep,
Yeah,
deep secret that I will not probe right now?
no, nothing. I would be very happy to talk about it. So, Humans on Wheels is an initiative where it's for the community and by the community in itself. Like the idea is to talk about the good vibes, what we so call, like to talk about the accessible places in Pan India. That's where I'm really focusing upon. And it like I said, it's just going to be driven by like-minded people and for their own purposes. So the idea is to have a catalog of accessible places, wheelchair accessible places in India.
Interesting, very interesting. So at least we know that, whether your GPS says it or no, this is a place where I can, wheel into. I think this is fantastic. And in the process of that, if you can do like a travel vlog or something like that, that will be so interesting, right? Just to have a visual captured along with a database. But
Yeah.
I can't help but agree with you, Dhanya. I think, because even my daughter Kia has a rare genetic disorder, and I hate the word rare because we make it sound very obsolete or very few. There are actually 7,000 rare known rare diseases in the world, right? And thankful to the medical advancement today, we have a genetic screening test, like you rightly said, which you can take like a one-time DNA swab test, and that can screen you against 6,000 rare diseases, right? And you can keep that with you, when you find a partner, when you want to plan a family, you can map your genetic report cards, and should you have mutations, you can figure out an alternate way of conceiving a child and grow your family, right? And that is so much safer to prevent children with disabilities and very, very severe disabilities from being born, right? And come to think of it, Dhanya, how many people in our country are talking about different work and actions that they are doing in the space of people with disabilities, right? But how many people, on the contrary, are talking about prevention of disability population from growing? Very, very few. I think you are absolutely spot on when you say that we need to raise awareness for rare diseases, because they are not really rare. It's rare only because we don't talk about it. And you are on this side of the fence, I was on the other side of the fence at one point of time, and it was because of the lack of awareness that we are where we are today, right? With all the suffering at no for no fault of our own. So one of the very good reasons that we need to talk about, I think, everywhere, not just on stages as motivational speeches, but I've been doing it rampantly with corporates, and trying to tell them that, India being the largest back office of the world, where we, handle so many offshore jobs, if a corporate can use their medical insurance to include a genetic test, right? Make it free. That 15,000, 20,000 rupee test can be made free as a part of their medical, health checkup list. Imagine the large workforce that can be prevented from, being thrown to the side of the fence. It's a huge blessing. While we talk about the cure, yes, there are a few, just maybe 5% of the 7,000 known rare diseases, but these are extremely expensive, and we don't have health insurance covering it in our country, right? So it's crazy money. It doesn't make sense when you know that healthcare access is so weak. So this is something that is very critical. And while you crusade for it, Dhanya, always consider me to be a partner. Okay, this is something that we need. I think everybody voices on, to kind of join in, because we need to prevent people with disabilities from being born or being diagnosed at any stage. Whatever can be prevented, I think, is the best cure. The last question for our podcast, Dhanya: what is your ask? From people around you, do you feel everything that you're doing needs more support? If so, what is the way that people can come forward and support you?
So I don't want to be selfish here. The people come and support only me. I would rather say that just think about where you are and with what you do. Try to be more inclusive and try to be more mindful on how you judge people. And maybe that today maybe a listener is a CEO, or maybe a listener might be a clerk, or maybe a special mother or a student. Wherever you are, I think each of us have a small role to play to contribute to the community and to the society. So I would say that pledge yourself to be more inclusive in what you do and how you think, and this would actually create a world of love more than hatred and disrespect. And yeah, I think that's the most beautiful thing I could ever ask.
Absolutely. And give everybody an opportunity to live with dignity. That is so important. I think, that is, I think, the most important way in which we can create a better world is by taking away, that space where people get left out, and, they actually don't have a dignified approach to their own lives. I think every human being on this planet Earth, whether they are completely able-bodied or no, requires a dignified way of living their lives. So if you can even uplift one person's life around you by giving them a sustainable life, please do that. I keep telling people that if you have the ability to educate one child, give a job to one person, please do that, because you really don't have to make a large scale impact. Try by helping one person around you, and that will make a better world. So Dhanya, I had an extremely gratifying session with you, and while we have our own journeys, I think a lot of things are common between so many of us, right? Thank you so much. Stay blessed and take care.
Thank you so much, Monisha, for having me part of the podcast.